obviously, people know what the idea is of Brexit, separating from the EU. But can you explain like the sides of the argument, like in terms of who is fighting for what? Like, I mean, we know that obviously that is definitely the right wing position. And can you explain why, like what the background is of who's fighting for Brexit?
So I kind of divide it into like four categories. Essentially, I see like the two sides of the argument that was had between like the people, and the two sides of the argument that was had between the establishment. It's the establishment arguments are the ones that are going to win out. Hence the title of the book, The Establishment Civil War. But basically, it was the argument for the establishment was that Europe was holding Britain back because we were, getting wound up in all of this red tape because the EU issues a lot of declarations on different like rules and laws that we're meant to have, and over the past 40 years, their kind of scope has expanded and expanded and expanded into loads of different areas that were never envisioned initially. And the argument was that Britain could be, more prosperous and free outside of those regulations. It was a very like neoliberal deregulatory argument. And then there was also
nationalistic, very nationalistic.
Yeah, they really played on the sort of, Britain can be great again. Like it was such a mirror of the Make America Great Again thing. And
they were call that neoliberal, which is so interesting. And people need to understand that in this country. Like to you, that's neoliberal. To us, that's conservative. That's how far right we are. So people need to be aware of that. Like that would not be something that you would think a neoliberal would say here. Conservative.
I mean, like for me, neoliberalism isn't exactly like a left or right ideology. It's one that's been subsumed by like basically the entire like ruling class of both Britain and America, in my view, anyway. And it's basically defined by like three things. It's deregulation, it's cutbacks of public services, and it's privatization of industry and sell-off of public assets. And that's what happens every single time we see someone arguing for like free trade or, cutting the red tape to like free up the economy. And it happened over the past 40 or 50 years throughout the world. Naomi Klein's The Shock Doctrine is a fantastic exploration of it. And she really lays out exactly how it's always like every single like encroachment of neoliberalism is preceded by a crisis, like a shock, hence the shock doctrine. And I basically think that Brexit is going to be the shock that will give us this next wave of neoliberalism, and I feel that around the world, COVID is also going to be exploited for the very same reason, and it concerns me a little bit, and it's definitely something we got to watch out for because it's going to be used to give power and money to people who probably have way too much of it already.
So you heard what I was saying before you came on. You were listening for a while. Like I got a lot of crap today from people, and all I'm doing is just postulating, just saying like, let's talk about this. Let's reason this. And it's like vitriolic. You don't care about other people. It's not about you. It's about and I'm like, yeah. And that's what people were saying. And we were talking about 9/11 when we gave up our 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendment rights and our Patriot Act. And people were so willing to do that. And nobody was going to think that through. And we never got those back, by the way. So, once you give up your rights, you don't get them back, so it's just, but yet, yes, I'm still like just dealing with this just from, thinking about the vaccine issue.
And I mean, like, this is one of the things that like I raise in my book and is still really prescient now. Like, fortunately for me, because it means I get to talk about it, but unfortunately for society that we haven't dealt with it, is that like social media seems to just amplify any division that exists. It seems to, whether maliciously or not, it just seems to like pour petrol on like hot button issues and cause these huge fires, and it seems to make people crazy. And I was actually listening to a podcast the other day between Jordan Peterson and Brett Weinstein, who have been controversial for their own reasons, but like Jordan Peterson put it brilliantly, and I think it actually explains a lot of madness that's going on. He was talking about how how much we've been like immersed in our digital communities this year.
Yes.
And how much it's ruined us. So like the quote is, he says, a phenomenon that has recently emerged from the increase in online community interactions is a seeming abundance of acute paranoia. One that causes may lie in the ability to hyper select the communities themselves. And at your weakest point psychologically, you choose the least demanding compatriots and see your craziest ideas are going to be less likely to be challenged. And I think that like speaks so beautifully to where we've ended up. Like, people do not want to listen to each other, and they will literally just sit around and discuss things with the people that are going to agree with them. And it's like echo chambers and filter bubbles on steroids, and it's getting worse and worse and worse because anyone with a dissenting voice seems to just be getting like wiped out of the conversation. People like even like Steven Crowder. I know he's not exactly on the same side of the political conversation as you guys, but
not a fan at all.
But he is always well sourced, and you can disagree with it, what he takes from it, but he provides sources for everything he talks about. And he's been like temporarily suspended from YouTube. And that's
well,
really,
I mean, I have been very clear from the beginning that I support. I am a First Amendment absolutist when it comes to this stuff. I mean, I was against Alex Jones being deplatformed, and he's a buffoon. So I don't really care. Yeah, no. I'm not for Trump being deplatformed, quite honestly. So, you know, I take that very seriously. It is look, when people act out of fear, it freaks me out.
And again,
like I get scared when people are acting out of fear because we're losing reason.
And Bernie came out in defense of Trump the other day, and people literally lost their minds.
They can't handle it. They can't handle it.
I think he's a terrible person. I really don't want him to be, saying the things that he says, but I really don't think censorship is the answer.
Censorship is never the answer. Well, explain how, which wouldn't necessarily be a horrible thing with social media if there wasn't this corporate sinister overlords that oversee it. So if it were really like, let's say, just free broadband, social and there was nobody like in charge of it, then it wouldn't be as problematic. I think it would have other issues, but we're seeing such a dominance, and that's what your book is about. I'd love for you to talk about how that. Okay, by the way, it's not really Jimmy Dore. Okay,
yeah, I was wondering. I was like, amazing Jimmy Dore, and then
it's not Jimmy Dore. It's somebody. We think it's one of our trolls, Declan.
Josh, if you can,
I was in the middle of asking a question.
I apologize.
Explain how that ownership of the media is what connected it to Brexit and how that worked.
Well, the way that, with the problem with the media is that, and the problem with social media as well is that, as I mentioned before, they just tend to enjoy causing chaos. And I think the reason that social media has caused so much chaos in both Britain and America is because they were the most divided already. Whether you can blame the media over the last 40 years for that, I definitely think they've got a part to play. But the way it was exploited is just phenomenally terrifying. So you guys are probably familiar with the company Cambridge Analytica, and I'm not going to go.
Of course we are.
And I'm not going to go to town on them specifically because they're just one company trying to exploit this. This is not something that it's like exclusive to them, but the tactics they used are phenomenally destructive for any kind of like reasonable democracy to have in there, where they can just like dump dark ads on social media about anything they want with zero oversight, zero regulation. And this is not me calling for like government control of what people are allowed to say. We have laws for every other type of advertising ever. Like we have the watershed. I know in America you have like TV political ads. In Britain, we don't even have them because we decided that like politics belongs on the doorstep. It's meant to be about how many people you can talk to and say, hey, come on, let's go knock on doors, or how many people you can get to appear at your rallies, and how many people you can convince your ideas are good. You shouldn't be able to like campaign from behind ironically a laptop or sitting here, but you shouldn't be able to like campaign sitting with a big pile of cash to spend on ads. You should be basing that on the ideas that you can sell to people and convince them to go out and campaign for you. And it's so terrifying that we just sort of allow this. And I think the reason that we've done nothing about it is because, as is very often the case, the media stand to benefit from it, because, you know, the more culture war, the more like outrage, the more clicks they get, and the politicians stand to benefit from it, because why on earth would they want to regulate something that they can exploit? It's just like the same old tired story, where it's something that's going to harm the general public, but will, you know, continue to allow the people who are currently in power to stay there and be unchallenged. And the sort of slow creep of censorship is terrifying to me, because it, like, I got really worried about echo chambers while I was writing my book, about people only hearing their side of the argument, and the only time then they would hear the other side would be someone like parodying what they think about something. And now with people being like banned, it's going to turn places like Twitter and Facebook and YouTube into one giant echo chamber. And if you thought things were bad when we were all on the same platform, like, where do you see how crazy they get when we don't even have access to what the other side are saying of any issue? It's going to get real wild.
Yeah, it's very scary to me. I think that just the whole corporate ownership of it and able to control what we can and can't hear. We've always had significantly worse issues in this country. Recently, it was brought to my attention that there were a bunch of people in the UK, I guess, that had watched Oprah's interview with Meghan and Harry, and they were taken back by how many pharmaceutical ads that were run during that interview. And we're so brainwashed in this country by propaganda and corporatism and stuff like that, that people have literally been herded into their little groups. And what's even more scary than that is that, as somebody who is in the political world, whenever I have done anything to reach out to different people, other-minded people, the other political party, any other demographic, I get nothing but crap from the people that are the Democrat, that are the left, or they're supposed to be our left, which is your right, but our left. But they can't handle it. You're not even allowed to give a platform. I got crap for going on Tim Pool's show. I got crap for having Vosh come on my show. I get crap. Like, you're not allowed to mingle with people that have ever said anything that has been remotely objectionable to anybody. And that's, we're having no discourse at all. And it's very scary. I mean, I agree. This is something that is very concerning to me. Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.